So I decided I wanted to start doing recaps of this show called Arrow. And I picked the show Arrow not because it's the best show on television. It is not. Although the best show on television is called Archer, so you could easily get confused. It's not the worst show on television either. It's a potentially very good show kind of in its larval stage right now. As most shows that have a fantasy or a science fiction element tend to be not that good in the first season. Even shows we look back on and love, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, are kind of awkward when they start out. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think any show that's starting out has to establish all the characters, all the relationships, all the conflicts, and that's hard enough. But if you're doing it in a world with vampires or robots or guys with bows and arrows, in addition to having to set up all the normal character relationships, you also have to establish the parameters of the world you're living in. The other thing I find interesting is the whole process of adapting comic books into movies and television is very interesting to me. There's a lot of good ways to do it and a lot of very bad ways to do it. The character of Green Arrow is interesting. He's not really a top-tier comic book character. He started out as this sort of combination of Robin Hood and Batman, and was kind of goofy, honestly. The guy just shot arrows at people. But then in the 70s and 80s, the character began to be used as kind of a liberal, bleeding heart hero who was trying to go after the root causes of crime. The show takes place against the backdrop of the 99% and Occupy Wall Street and this generalized mistrust, very well placed mistrust if you ask me, of the wealthy and of corporations. And the approach of the show is to have Green Arrow not really fighting criminals so much as he's fighting a kind of conspiracy of very well connected elites who are kind of bleeding the city dry. So I just watched the episode Burned with my son, and we're going to talk about it a little bit together. Alright, you ready?
Yeah.
Sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our first review of the show Arrow, which is in its first season, but exactly so. It's in its first season and just started back for the new year. This episode was called Burned, and it dealt with
Fireman, evil fireman.
A fireman who was burned in the line of duty and then kind of went crazy and started setting fires. And he's called Firefly, which is also the name of a Batman villain, but with a different story, which is something the show does a lot. The show likes to pick up little bits and pieces of the DC universe and sort of repurpose them. They didn't do that much with this character. It was kind of, his name is Firefly, he sets fires.
Kills other firemen.
He kills other firemen. In the end, he's killed in a fire. I guess that's spoilers if you haven't watched it. So, did you like this episode?
Yeah.
What did you like?
That the evil fireman was the guy from Terra Nova. Evil guy, Lucas.
Oh, so what guy from Terra Nova was he?
It's the guy.
I did not know this. This is.
It's the guy, who is connected.
Was he the son?
Yeah.
The guy who. The guy who does all the math, the evil math.
The Eve.
Okay. The whole premise of the show is that Oliver Queen.
Hey, Papa.
What?
Don't forget that the evil fireman's face was all.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. The other thing that's weird about this plot is it sort of hinges on the idea that a fireman could be killed in a fire or could be injured in a fire and then not identified. That just seems very implausible to me that somebody at some point wouldn't have identified him as a member of the fire department. Of course, the whole premise of the show is that Oliver was lost at sea with his dad, and his dad died.
But we all know, if you watch the show, that, and you've been just hanging on to the season, that the mother sabotaged the boat.
Well, I don't think she sabotaged the boat.
No.
I think she's involved with the people who did, but she didn't directly do it. But she's definitely very involved with the bad people. There's no question. But I think she's trying to at least protect her family, if not everybody else.
Why'd she get involved with the bad guys?
Well, things are complicated. I mean, Oliver's father was involved with them too. That's how they got rich. They got rich by doing bad things, and it's kind of hard to pull yourself out. And of course, the high point of this episode, as with any episode of Arrow, is any scene involving Oliver and Dig, because Dig is just made of awesome He's like a sort of ninja Yoda figure.
See you next week.